brought up the subject of the beloved wife, your women in your Shiva Trilogy as well as from the book one of this one, you have a tendency towards, you gravitate towards very strong women characters, attributing them with far more than they actually probably started out with in the original epics. Sati and then Sita. They are. What is this tendency towards these sort of warrior princesses that you seem to favor a lot? I mean.
Okay, firstly, I guess personal experience. I grew up in a family where my mother, my sister, my sisters-in-law, my wife, they're not the kind of women who take shit from anyone. They're very strong women. So for me, it's like the standard model. And my parents never differentiated between, we were three brothers, one sister. My sister is the eldest. They never differentiated between the boys and the girl. So there were the same rules for everyone. So and look, I'm 41 years old and I'm the youngest. So I'm talking about a much earlier time. So my sister was not allowed to sleep over at anyone's house. She had to come home. She could go if she wanted to, but she had to sleep at home. Since that was a law for my sister, that was a law for the three of us brothers as well. We couldn't sleep over either. So they were very clear, it's the same rules for everyone. I grew up in that atmosphere. Secondly, actually, if you read our stories, sadly, many of the versions of the epics that most of us are at least aware of in the modern day are actually based on television serials made after the 1980s. And many of them were based on medieval interpretations of our epic stories. Now, the medieval interpretations, yes, had become very patriarchal. Any society which is undergoing a lot of violence tends to become patriarchal. It's a natural sociological process. But if you actually look at interpretations of our epics, of our myths from an earlier era, it is not so out of the ordinary to see very strong women. For example, in the Rig Veda, for example, in ancient times, the highest status was for rishis. Their status was even higher than kings. You could, not exactly, but you could equate them sort of to the prophets and messiahs of the Abrahamic faiths. Sort of, not exactly, but sort of, because they communicated to God, right? In the Rig Veda, there are 30 hymns written by rishikas, by women rishis. That was the status of women in ancient India. It wasn't out of the ordinary to have women rulers. In ancient India, till as late as medieval India, the Kakadiya dynasty of South India, it was a very large empire. Their greatest ruler was a woman called Rudrama Devi. She was a warrior. She used to get on horseback and lead her army into battle. And she won almost every battle that she fought. She was one tough lady. We've heard of Razia Sultan, of course. There were many other women rulers like this. It wasn't out of the ordinary. And this is just in the area of violence. And I admit that specifically in the area of violence, perhaps women can find it more difficult to compete with men because nature hasn't blessed them with bigger, tougher bodies, hasn't blessed them with testosterone. But in the areas of knowledge, in all ancient stories, you'll find it very common. It's not out of the ordinary. So my stories, I would suggest, are actually being more true to our ancient way than some of the medieval versions.
But we have moved
We have a version of the Ramayana called the Adbhut Ramayana. Okay. It's more than 1,000 years old. It's also credited to Valmiki ji. Guess who kills Ravan in that version of the Ramayana?
Sita.
Applause for everyone. It's Sita Ma who kills Ravan. There are two Ravans. There's an elder Ravan. Sita Ma kills Ravan in that version of the Ramayana when she takes a true form as Ma Kali. Now I'm saying this in Calcutta, so applause again. And okay, this is a very old version. We've forgotten it today. It was very popular.
1,000 years old.
More than at least 1,000 years old. Also credited to Valmiki ji, by the way.
Okay. This is something that I've learnt. I didn't know about this.
You've heard of that line from the Mahabharata, Yada Yada Dharmasya Glanir. Yeah? We all know what that line means, right? That Lord Krishna will incarnate in case whenever adharma rises or dharma declines. There's another version of this line. Yada Yada Dharmasya Glanir Bhavati Suvrata, not Bharata, Suvrata. Yada Yada Dharmasya Glanir Bhavati Suvrata Abhyuthanam Adharmasya Tada Prakruti Sambhava. When adharma rises or dharma declines, the mother will incarnate. This version also exists. Again, in the Adbhut Ramayana.
Okay, this, I think, book needs to be, you need to translate it. Forget about the trilogy for now. You translate the Adbhut Ramayana first. We need to read this. Okay. So we've moved slightly off topic. And we are, remember we decided to split this 50-50. Yeah. So I think we can take questions from you now, if you have any. Okay.
Is there a mic going
There are several mics, I think. Okay. There is one running to you now. There's one. There's a question there.
I'm sorry, I got to keep eating some.
Yes, please no. You must keep your throat in working order.
Hi. I don't want to be rude or offensive, as you just said you had.
No, go on. We're Indians. We're supposed to be argumentative.
Yes. So my point is, I feel some of the times that we look at Ramayana very, very simplistically. We were talking about in the previous session how complex things are. It's not as, and don't you think it's us or what have preceded us has demonized Ravan and deified Ram? Honestly speaking, to me, sometimes it looks like War of Two Kings. Would you like to comment on that?
You're not being rude by asking this question. There's a temple in UP dedicated to Ravan. People who worship him. They respect Lord Ram too. There's a place called Mandor in Rajasthan, where they worship Ravan and his wife, Mandodari. The concept of seeing Ravan as a pure, demented, evil demon is again a result of the 1980s television serial. Once again, in the Indian way, there is no pure good and pure evil. That concept doesn't exist. Even in ancient Sanskrit, there is no exact translation for the English word evil. So if I had to write the Shiva Trilogy to explain that concept of evil, if I was writing in Sanskrit, there's no need to explain that concept because the concept of evil didn't exist. So nothing is pure evil. Everything exists for a purpose. If you see the ancient versions of the Ramayana, the portrayal of Ravan is actually quite nuanced. They show his good sides as well. It was called Sone Ki Lanka. Why? Because he was a good king for his people. For his people, he was a good king. He had faults as well. Primarily his ego. Correct? So you were supposed to learn something from Ravan too. And that was actually the traditional way, the ancient way of looking at Ravan as well. The modern simplistic approach is actually a modern approach. It's not our ancient approach. In the modern way, we've tended to simplify everything. This is good, this is wrong. This is good, this is evil. This guy is pure white, this guy is pure black. In the ancient way, there was no pure white, there was no pure black. Life never actually worked that way. Real life is far more complicated. Why is Ram deified? But the Indian way, all of us are deified. We are supposed to, the true journey to learn from our gods is how can we deify ourselves? How can we discover the God within? It's actually a very powerful concept. It's not about an external God who will judge you. That's not the concept. It's about looking at God as a role model and learning so that you can become God. That is the journey. That's the true journey. So there's again asking that question that why deify is again, it's like I heard the last part of that speech. It's like we're playing cricket, but we want to talk about football. It has nothing to do with this at all. you have to go further. Why just stop at deifying Ram? Why not deify yourself? That is the journey.
I think there was a question there. Who has the microphone? Oh, okay.
Okay.
Whoever has the microphone.
Good evening to both of you
Hey.
present on stage. There's a simple question for Amish sir. I've read your Shiva Trilogy and also the first book of Ram. So my question to you is that we deify Ram, we call him the Maryada Purushottam, but in your book you have shown it brilliantly. I have no words
Thank
to
you.
describe it. That Shiva is the person who brings together both the Chandravanshi and the Suryavanshi ways of life. He unites them into a code of life which is very much balanced. So why not call Shiva as a Maryada Purushottam and give Ram some other title?
You're assuming that Maryada Purushottam is a higher or lower title. It's not. It's just something to learn from. When you say Maryada Purushottam, it's about a life of laws. That's it. That's what it's supposed to mean. There are other ways of life as well. As far as what Lord Shiva is supposed to signify as the Mahadev is, his job is not to push any particular way of life. The Mahadev's job is to remove evil from the equation, which is why he cannot be biased towards anyone, which is why he has to belong to everyone, either detach from everyone or belong to everyone. So the true thing is to understand what the point of the term Maryada Purushottam is supposed to mean. And perhaps we could learn, some concepts from Lord Ram as well in terms of Maryada. I think in modern India, we take rule breaking a little too far. We could learn to perhaps follow rules a little bit. The society would become a little more efficient. We can never be China. We should try to be like that. But if the signal is on red, it might be a good idea to stop the car, sometimes.
Okay. There's a question here.
I have the mic.
Oh, okay. No, she has the mic. So she has the question.
Okay, after that you.
Okay. I guess you skipped the part where you were supposed to comment on the Wali episode, but then.
No, I didn't. I said you'll have to wait for my interpretation. That's all.
He's not giving away
But
spoilers.
I just said that understand that the
but
word.
then,
Sorry, go ahead.
like from what I know, I mean that's the standard accepted version. That is, Wali had apparently exploited Sugriev's wife Rama, and in a way Ram claimed to have avenged that. But then again, the Wali episode is a very controversial episode. We really don't know who's right, who's wrong, because it all started with a horrible misunderstanding. So would you like to make a comment on that?
Again, goes into the concept of what is right and wrong. We have to understand in the Indian way, the concept of stories is to the concept of stories is to learn some philosophies which you can apply in your own life. Right or wrong always has a context. Like, let me give you an example. Of course, non-violence is a good philosophy to follow. But say there are 10 guys going down, and they walking down the road, they see a woman being assaulted. Should they say, no, I'm going to be non-violent and not do anything? Or should they go and fight? So then, are they doing something right or something wrong? Or would you call it vigilantism? Is vigilantism right or wrong? Everything is in the context that it is in. And most of our epics put in concepts and events which are supposed to confuse you. That's the way it's supposed to be. The first time I'd heard the entire Ramayana, I was 9 or 10 at that point of time. Okay, so you have to understand it's from the perspective of a 9 or 10-year-old guy. Because I'd heard various incidents of the Ramayana before that. I learned the Ramayana primarily from my family. My grandfather was a Pandit in Kashi. But the entire Ramayana I heard at that age. And I remember when it actually ended, my first reaction was, what? This makes no sense. If it had ended where Lord Ram and Lady Sita left Lanka, came back to Ayodhya, ruled happily ever after, it would have seemed logical. But it doesn't end there. He abandons her. Correct. The ending made absolutely no sense to me. He was behaving out of character. Think of the Mahabharata, the way the Mahabharata ends. Again, if it had ended when the Pandavas had defeated the Kauravas and they ruled happily ever after, it would have been a so-called logical ending. But it doesn't end there. At the end, and you know how it ends, right? The Pandavas climb the mountains to go to Devalok. One by one, all of them fall down. Only Yudhishthira and a dog. The dog has symbolism. They enter heaven and they find the Kauravas out there. And again, my reaction was, what? Like, this makes no sense. The entire point in the Indian storytelling style is to put in events which confuse you, and then you think about it. And then you discover some philosophies which work for you. And your answers can be different from someone else's, which is completely okay, because you are different from someone else. There are supposed to be events like this. It's the storytelling style. Because the point is not about the story itself. The point is not to get you to judge what is right and wrong. The point is to force you to think and approach some philosophies which make sense for you in this life. That is the approach in Indian storytelling. That'll be my approach to the Wali episode as well. So you'll have to wait for that. Okay. Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
she has the mic.
Hi.
And then there's a question there behind. Oh, acha, there's another mic here. Okay, okay.
No, I've been enjoying all your books till now. Was wondering about this Ramayana, where and how the story of the Rama's sister comes in. Would you like to say something about it?
There is no version of the Ramayana that I've read till now, which has Lord Ram's sister. But there is a reference to Lord Ram's sister in the Mahabharata. There's also a reference to Lord Ram's sister in one of the Vaishnava Purans, I think the Padma Puran, if I'm not mistaken. So it's an interpretation. My version of the Ramayana is an interpretation of various versions of the Ramayana, some stories from the Puranas, and mixed up with my imagination as well. In my book itself, though, yes, I want to make a point, or rather want to just trigger a debate on this issue of adolescent crime. And there is in the book itself, and I haven't taken a side either way, in the book itself, there is Lord Ram's approach that you have to follow the law. Even if that means the adolescent will get away, you cannot break the law. There is Lord Bharat's approach, which is the law is supposed to serve the cause of justice. If that means I have to break the law to serve the cause of justice, I will break the law. Which way is better? This is something perhaps we should debate and discuss, because this is an issue that is exploding in our society right now. If you see data, adolescent crime is really going up, especially among boys, but even girls are committing adolescent crime, and in that age group of between 15 to 18, there are many criminal gangs who've caught on to this fact that actually you can use adolescents to commit crime and just get away with it. So they are actually hiring adolescents. It's something our society should just debate. Laws, the present law that's been made, the present rape law that's been made was made in anger. Any law should never be made in a rush or in anger, because a law has to last for 100 years. So we need to just debate and think calmly that this is an issue. This is an issue that is impacting India. Let's just debate calmly about it. We are not having a calm debate on this adolescent crime issue. There are just people on two extremist sides just calling each other names. You know, the people who fight for adolescent rights are calling the other guys cruel, and these guys are calling the adolescent right guys clueless, you know, bleeding hearts. And just we need to have a calm debate on this issue. That's what I'm hoping to trigger in this.
Good evening, sir.
Hi.
Sir, first I would like to congratulate on introducing the concept of religion in front of every youth who have stopped saying that I'm an atheist and it's cool and I don't want to discuss about religion. So you just brought this entire phenomena of youth actually coming up and discussing about Shiva and Ram. So thank you for that, for starters. And sir, my question is, being brought up in a Bengali family and of whom everybody is crazy in my house about Michael Madhusudhan Dotto. And he has written Meghnad Bodh Kabbo, where he goes out and highlights Meghnad being the hero and Ravana being, and showing his good sides and his nuances. So I have grown up in that surrounding.
with that basis, I have never actually got up to be an extremist against Ram, but it has always been inflicted on me as a pattern of thought that Ram and Ravan never really were showing two different whole sides as such, but each were completing one another, both complements of each other. They were not as per se as wars, but as an entirety of completion. Not enemy, but a completion of an entirety. So I would really like you to comment on this, about this view.
Okay, the first thing that I want to say is there's nothing wrong with atheism. In the ancient way, for example, we have various schools of philosophy, various schools of darshana. We have various of those schools which are actually atheist schools. The Charvaks, for example, were clearly atheists. The Sankhyas and the Mimamsas, they were theists from the Indian perspective because they believed in the Vedas. But from the modern perspective, they were atheists because they didn't believe in God, they didn't believe in any creator. And none of these groups were attacked or any violence committed on them. There's nothing wrong with being an atheist. It's if you're a good atheist committing good karma, it's probably better than being a religious extremist. So don't judge atheism. There's nothing wrong with being an atheist. In the Indian way, there's certainly nothing wrong. Atheists were never oppressed in India. From the perspective of Meghnad and Ravan, and what the relationship between Lord Ram and Ravan would be, there's a myth that I think you'll probably find interesting. It's very popular in UP and Bihar. I don't know if it's well known in Bengal. When Ravan lay dying, Lord Ram had sent Lord Lakshman that you go and learn from Ravan, because Ravan is a great intellectual. His knowledge of the arts of administration, of the Vedas, of philosophy is fantastic, and that knowledge should not die. One of the biggest perspectives in the Indian way is knowledge should not die out. It should keep getting passed on. Lord Lakshman went to Ravan, but he stood close to Ravan's head, and Ravan refused to speak. And Lord Lakshman came back and told Lord Ram कि भाई ये तो अभी भी हट्टी है, अभी भी कुछ बोल नहीं रहा है. So then Lord Ram went and asked him, and he stood at Ravan's feet. He showed him respect, and he learned that knowledge from Ravan. This myth also exists, which comes back to the point that I made earlier, that this perspective of looking at Ravan as this pure, demented, evil demon is a relatively recent phenomenon. It wasn't the way ancient Indians approached this subject. There was something to be learned from everyone. That was the ancient approach. So
Okay. After you, then we'll have a question here. Who has? So does he actually? Who's? Okay. Shall we send you both out and you can? Okay.